And I'm recording because we will also be putting this recording on the advanced webpage. And we'll be doing that so that you can use the recording to share with your colleagues, with your friends, and in general, just let people know the information that Dr. Beth Stauffer is going to be sharing with us this evening. But before I introduce her, I just want to take one moment to share screen. And what I want to share with you, and hopefully Dr. Stauffer, you can tell us we're seeing the advanced webpage right now. Yes, okay. What I want to share with you is that we are bringing you this from the new Student Center for Research, Creativity, and Scholarship. And our job is to help promote and actually implement the advanced program here at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And one of the many ways we do that is to maintain this webpage. And I'd like to point out to you that when you come to this webpage, there's some resources here that are very helpful. One for students is there's student research opportunities that are constantly renewed. We post things here all the time. Faculty, if you have information, we'll share it the moment you send it to us. Also opportunities to present your work. So LSU, for instance, has a undergraduate research conference coming up, and that information is shared here. So there's both virtual and conferences you can go to in person. And then also here under workshops and events, you'll find information, including the recording for this event tonight. And then two last things to share. One is that if you join our email list, we email about every 2 weeks what's going on. And finally, somewhere on this webpage, and you should have gotten an email, all of you now have access, and I'm going to stop sharing, to the Council for Undergraduate Research. It's a national organization that will connect you with what's happening with undergraduate research across the country. You have free membership to this if you have a UL website. So if you are a faculty or student, and I encourage you to go and use this resource. If we don't use it, I won't be able to continue to justify it. So after you listen to Dr. Stauffer today, then go and sign up. I mean, if you need links, just contact us and we'll let you have those links. So with that, no further ado, Dr. Stauffer has agreed to talk to us about how to make your application the acceptable and chosen application for REU process. And we really appreciate Dr. Stauffer coming to speak to us today. And so that's my introduction of you. And you have the screen.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. And yeah, thanks for coming out on a Thursday evening. We were saying it's been a busy semester already, so I'm glad we were able to get this in. Okay, I put together just a handful of slides. Can you guys see the slide presentation? Okay, thanks, Sherry. So hi, I'm Beth Stauffer. I'm an associate professor in biology, and so I mentor students. I did research as an undergrad back in the day, partly how I got my start in science, but I also mentor students in my lab. But most recently, and maybe most importantly for today, for the last 4 years, I've been leading an NSF-funded REU site here at UL Lafayette. So I've seen the other side of getting a bunch of REU applications, having to look at all of the amazing students out there and think about, you know, who we're going to invite to come do research with our program. So I just like to try and share that with people who are interested in trying to get into these programs. So I guess before I go too far, let's see, I'm going to pull up the chat. Who, or maybe you guys can use your reaction fingers or something, who here is an undergrad student who is interested in applying for a research experience? All right, so we've got a bunch of you. Cool. Who here is a faculty member who maybe is interested in helping students get into REU programs or interested in them from kind of the faculty research side? Yeah, okay. Let's see, let's see, maybe put it in the chat if you have a second, if you can access that, what your home department is, just so I get a sense for where everyone's coming from tonight. So I'm from biology. We've got psychology, cool. Got comp sci. I'm like, I don't know comp so, but comp sci, cool. Excellent. Anybody else? Mathematics, math. Okay. some computer science, communicative disorders. Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay. So we've got some science, we've got some math, we've got some psychology and some other disciplines. So I'm talking today specifically about the health promotion and wellness. Very cool. About a specific program that's funded by the National Science Foundation. So if you don't necessarily see your discipline in this, though, I think a lot of what I'm sharing is applicable to kind of any research internships, right? How you kind of sell yourself as like, I want this, I need this, this is going to be really important for my professional development career, and also I'll bring something to offer. Those are, I think, the basics of anything: getting an internship, getting a job, getting tenure and promotion, who knows. Okay, so without further ado, let's see if I can get this to go. So I'm talking primarily today about research experiences for undergraduates, or what we call REUs. And this is a program that's funded by the National Science Foundation, our main kind of basic science agency in the country. And this is, I've just taken from their website, right, to support active research participation by undergraduate students. And really, it's meant to involve students, as they say, in meaningful ways in ongoing research programs. And so at its heart, what the REU is supposed to do is bring students into the lab, the field, the computer program, wherever science, wherever research gets done, and help them have a really meaningful experience there. So it can be a little bit different than, for example, if you get kind of like a student job where you're in a lab and maybe, hopefully this doesn't happen too often, but where you're just like doing the same thing every day, or if you're in an office and you're, helping file papers or things. Like, it really is about trying to have a more or less authentic research experience, thinking about questions, designing an approach to tackle those questions, and then also, presenting the research that you do. So that's kind of the brief intro, and I've got some links here. I'll share these slides with you, Sherry, if you want to share them somewhere. But if you Google NSF REU, it's basically the first link that comes up. This is the program I'm talking about. And there's kind of two different forms that an REU can take. One is what I ran, which is an REU site. That's a grant that the university and I got from NSF to bring kind of a cohort of students doing research around a common theme, but kind of independent research. Usually these programs are about 8 to 10 weeks in the summer. Some happen during the academic year. I've seen some that are actually, they're staying virtual, which is kind of cool. But these are paid internships. That's also one of the things that I want to get across. All of these REU programs are supposed to support the students for doing this work and this research. So if it's a kind of summer program, typically that support includes a stipend, housing, travel support, getting to and from the location, support to maybe go to a conference afterwards, things like that. You're not going to get rich doing an REU, but you will make enough to kind of, be able to eat and explore, and they're usually somewhat decently paid. Oh, thanks, Sherry. You're great at that. I was like, I should have a little thing of things to post in the chat, but awesome. There's another form, which I'm not going to talk too much about today, but these do exist. They're usually a little bit more word of mouth. And I know, Sherry, you have experience with the REU supplement model as well, where if you have a current NSF funded project, you can basically say, hey, NSF, give me an extra $6,000 or something to basically support an undergrad student or two who are going to do research around this project. And so in that case, it's probably a smaller group, maybe just 1 or 2 students. It could be during any time of year. In that case, it could be during the academic year or in the summer. Definitely usually still provides stipend, but other support like travel or housing might, depending on the nature of the award. So those are a little bit more word of mouth, and I don't think we have any biology students, at least who were in the room when I asked about that. But we do have one right now in biology through the CPING program. And so I just kind of wanted to share this one. So it's kind of available to you guys to see. And I see someone has their hand up. Let's see. Josh, do you have a question, or were you just saying I'm biology? Feel free to unmute or put it in the chat. Oh, yay, we have a bio. If you like plants, you should check this one out. And if plants aren't your thing, there are plenty of other things out there too. So, but this is one that Dr. Nick Coyers in the biology department is part of. Very cool program, very cool project. Just yeah, FYI, helping to spread the word about all the good research opportunities. Okay, there are some eligibility things, and I want people to kind of know this up front, but also not to be dissuaded by this. So NSF is it's funded by Congress, funded through taxpayer dollars. So by and large, most of the money goes to US citizens or permanent residents of the US or its possessions. So those are some fundamental kind of eligibility criteria. That being said, and I'll get to this in a second, there are ways that some programs work around this. So if you're not a US citizen or a permanent resident, don't be totally dissuaded. We'll get to that in a second. The other main eligibility criteria is that the semester after you do the REU, you need to be enrolled at a college, university, community college, kind of a degree granting institution. So what does that mean? That means if you are spring 2022, you're graduating in May, you would not be eligible for summer 2022 programs. If you're graduating in fall 2022, you're eligible. If you are a brand new freshman, you're eligible. If you're a high school student who's joining us in the fall, you're eligible for this summer. And I'll circle back around to the, if you're graduating thing in a second. Or maybe a little bit later, actually. So if you've graduated, the REU program is usually not for you, but actually with the pandemic, which has really significantly impacted being able to host these programs, NSF is actually coming up with some post-baccalaureate opportunities as well. Okay, so if you're not a citizen or permanent resident of the US, being funded by the NSF for an REU program is not an option. However, what some of these programs have done is they say, all right, we have funding to support 10 students from NSF. Let's go and find another X number of dollars, not from NSF, so we can support another 1 or 2 students. And in that case, you can still participate in the REU program or site, but you're not being funded by NSF dollars. So a lot of what navigating and finding REU programs comes down to is actually looking at the individual programs. Identify ones that are doing research that you're interested in, are in locations that you're interested in, maybe are with people who you're interested in. And then start digging into that, because that information will be provided. And if it's not, you can email the contact for the program. So generally, you need to have not graduated by the time you start the REU, and you need to be a citizen or permanent resident of the US. Giant asterisk there, right? Look at the program and see if they have additional opportunities for non-US or permanent resident students. Okay. If there are questions, feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat. And I'll certainly open things up afterwards for whatever questions or comments. Okay, so if you're here on a Thursday night, I'm guessing I don't have to belabor this point of why do undergrad research, why do an REU specifically. First and foremost, these are paid opportunities to do cool research. And in the case of an REU site, spend your summer. It's kind of like a summer job, and students treat it like that. This is a picture of our 2021 cohort when they first got here, and we had a little crawfish boil to welcome them. But some of the other benefits and reasons why, even if you're not sure if you want to go into research or you're thinking about, other career paths, is there's and employers and graduate schools and medical schools see this as part of your benefit from participating in these programs. is personal development, right? Sure, I think we're getting better in our classes at interweaving authentic research experience in that, but really there's nothing like planning an experiment, running it, have it fail, and then figure out the path forward for really helping us learn how to deal with very real obstacles that we're all going to deal with, regardless of what career path we take. These are all about you doing independent research, right? Building that sense of confidence in being able to do this. Professional development, certainly it's a must for if you're applying for grad school. A lot of certainly PhD programs, but even master's programs want to see that you've had some experience, maybe not in that certain thing you're trying to do, but just the tools and the experience and the methods, right, of research are important. And a lot of medical, other professional schools also see it as, you know, an investment you've made in learning to do science, learning to think critically, learning to write, present, etc. It's also a lot of fun. I know all of these, I call them kids. They're not kids, they're adults, but all of our REU participants, they keep in touch. They have like all these little ways of talking. They get together when they're in, you know, each other's cities. And so you get to kind of expand a cohort with people who are interested in similar things as you, but from all over the country, and also kind of have some fun over the summer. Okay, so finding an REU, again, Google NSF REU, the first link that comes up is basically where you can click and you can search for an REU site by kind of discipline, by area of research. So I think we've got some social, behavioral, and economic sciences people in here. So psychology, I think, would fit in here. Certainly we have mathematical, we have biological, a lot of computer science and engineering, all sorts of, I don't know if there's a lot related to health, but certainly within biological sciences and social, behavioral, and health, social, behavioral, and economic sciences, there would probably be some programs that are partly relevant, at least. But here's the thing, and this is like the one thing that I always want to make sure people understand, is that NSF provides the funding for these programs, but you have to actually apply to the REU sites themselves. They've actually made it a little bit more easy these days. There is kind of a common application, but depending on which field you're in, it may or may not be comprehensive. So basically, what's the first step? Go on their website, search. You can search by area of expertise, right? So in biological sciences alone, there's 142. There's 784 programs across all of these different disciplines. So there's a lot, right? These are any kind of field of research that falls within one of these categories. There's probably an REU site doing it. Every state, every non-state, like I think there are some that are that go international as well. So you can also search by location. So for example, like I'm from Louisiana, I live in Louisiana, I don't want to spend summer in Louisiana, maybe you want to find one in New Hampshire or, you know, Washington State. So you can also search by location, which is not a bad. We actually often had all students not from the South, and they would get off the plane here in June, and man, it was a rude awakening, but they got used to it. There are also some ways of not getting buried in the 782 programs that are listed. And this link should launch to a spreadsheet, which is a community source directory. It's primarily good for kind of environmental, earth, and kind of ecological sciences. But one of the other things to do is, I bet some of your professors, mentors, grad students know of some of the programs, some of the REU programs in your field that they could point you to. And they might even know somebody who's involved in that. And that can always be a good way to make contact and find one that, you know, kind of suits your desires. Okay. Again, you apply directly to the site or via this common application, which I've included the link here. If you're doing the common application, make sure that you spend some time setting up your profile. Like that takes a little bit of time, so don't go on the day before things are due. and try and do all of it. Make sure you're getting in there early. Make sure to note the deadlines. Some of the programs have very different deadlines. They run from kind of mid to late January through March. So I'm glad we're doing this now. But really this is the time to start ramping up, finding some programs, starting to get your application materials together. So we'll kind of spend time on that and what goes into like a good application, things maybe not to do. This is just another kind of regional program that I wanted to highlight down at LumCon. Again, maybe more for the biology, earth, ocean sciences folks, but again, you start to hear about these. I know, yeah, Sherry, you said you post them when you hear about them. I don't think you want to get all of the emails I get that are trying to hide, especially new programs. When there's a newly funded program, maybe I will start sending you those, because oftentimes those are the ones that get slightly fewer applications their first year. And it is competitive. So, the odds of getting into all of the ones you apply for isn't very high. And so you want to, maybe go for that. But yeah, I will start sending you more now that I think about it. Cause I'm always like, I don't want to just delete it, but I also can't spam everyone I know all the time. Okay, so the application is really the meat of what we're talking about. And again, let me know questions or comments as we go. And the main components are a resume or CV, some sort of personal statement where you talk about why you want to get research experience, what you want to do with that, kind of what you want to do with your life, etc. And then usually some letters of reference. And depending on the program, they might require 1 or 2. Some are moving away from requiring letters of reference as well. So application, resume, CV, just get somebody to look at it. There are so many resources on campus. There are so many resources through your departments, through your friends, through anybody who you've done work with. So I included obviously the Office of Career Services, but also I know right through Advance, y'all are putting together kind of guidelines and documents and just connecting people to resources. So reach out and just say, hey, I want to apply for this. I have a resume. Can somebody look at it? And so on. Yeah, and the Writing Center as well. So, there's a lot of opportunities on campus. If you're an undergrad and you're currently, doing research in someone's lab, or you have a professor or an instructor or a grad student who you get along with and feel comfortable saying, hey, could you look at this? This is part of what we do, right? This is part of what we enjoy in terms of being able to help a student kind of get through this, I don't know, get a good resume, so that will open a lot of doors. So just get some feedback. I think a lot of students, and I think sometimes in like career services, they'll tell you it has to be one page only. This is science. Your undergrads, aim for 1 to 2 pages. Make sure to highlight your education, your experience, but also make sure you highlight you as a person. The thing about these internships and these programs is they're not looking for someone who's fully formed, right? Who's already had all of the research experiences, who already knows exactly what they're doing and has that path clearly laid out. It's really about bringing new people into science and certainly showing, this is what you have accomplished, but also, maybe you work, right? Maybe you are really involved in campus activities. Like, you should include that information as well. So definitely include, if you're applying for, I don't know, I'm gonna pick something out of nowhere. Let's see, psychology. You're going to apply for something around like the psychology of climate change. I just made that up. That sounds kind of fun. Right? Any relevant coursework you've taken, you would need to include that, right? So psychology of the environment. I don't know. I don't even know what classes we offer. Sorry. I know the ones that the biology students take, but that's it. Any research experiences you've already had, even just participating in workshops, right, around research, or doing a research project in a lab as part of a class. You should include some of those things, especially if they're tangible and you can talk about them as something that kind of stands on its own. You should include professional work experience. Yes, even if you were waiting tables at social, like things like working part or full time partly tell us about who you are as a student, right? That you're balancing your course load with job obligations. Um, if you are, I see this a lot as well with like students who are in are on a team, student athletes, students who are like in the marching band. That's a huge time commitment, and it makes it really hard to add anything on top of that during the school year, right? So in that case, doing something in the summer might be your only option because it's the only time that you're not, traveling around playing your clarinet or, on the soccer team. Um, and yeah, and include things about how you're um, interacting on campus, groups that you're involved with, any kind of special, what's the word? Kind of, if you're going for environmental sciences or whatever, and you're working on a sustainability group or projects on campus, talk about that stuff. So, and again, the career services folks, and a lot of us can help you figure out, okay, that might be too much detail, or you should really include more of that here. Let's see. Yes, leadership training, peer mentoring, like all of those things, any sort of leadership role in, a sorority, like all of those things speak to how you balance your academic life with who you are as a person, but also that you're invested in these things. Okay, letters of reference. And I think this is the part where I try not to get too preachy. Line these up early. And I know that undergrads and myself as an undergrad, I vividly remember this. Sometimes we get a little bit shy. Sometimes we're like, well, I know that professor is really busy and I don't really want to ask them to do more, or like, oh, I got to be in their class. Like, I really liked it. I went to office hours and I got a lot better, but I only got a B. Just don't do that. Don't get up in your head. Just say, okay, I'm going to apply to REUs. I personally ask for at least 2 weeks notice. Like if someone comes to me less than 2 weeks notice, there's a very high chance that I'm just going to say, like, I physically can't, right? I just don't have, especially if it's the first time I'm writing a letter for that person. It takes time to do this well. And you want letter writers who are going to write you good, strong letters. So line this up now, right? So if you're even thinking about applying to REU programs, think about some of these people who I've listed as like best people to ask, and just send them an email and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. The timeline would be kind of, mid to late February, early March. Do you think you could do this? I'd really appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. But just send that email. Don't wait on it. Don't sit on it until you know exactly which programs you're applying to, because it could be, kind of a tight crunch at that point. Good people to ask: someone who you've taken a class with or who you've done research with. Bonus points if that class, isn't just like you going in and out of a lecture, but maybe like a lab or a field component. And someone who ultimately can say something more than just, what grade you got in their class, who you've interacted with. Maybe you've gone to office hours, maybe, yeah, you did some kind of extra credit stuff with them. And again, reach out, say, hey, I'm thinking about this. Would you be able and willing to write this letter? And then we can talk about what it means if you don't hear back or if they say something else. Sherry, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, one thing, as someone who's written quite a few letters also, I always ask students, please email me and remind me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get the green light for that, do it. And even if you don't, a reminder really helps, because faculty, it's not that they don't care, it's that they're busy. So for me, I literally tell them how often to remind me, because otherwise I forget. So I just wanted to throw that one in.
And this is the other thing, is that, you send that initial email, I'm thinking about applying to REU programs. Would you be able to write me a letter of reference? If you don't hear back, send another email next week, right? Give it a week to say, hey, I'm bumping this up in your inbox. I know you're really busy, blah, blah, blah. If you still don't hear back, move on. That person maybe is just so swamped, but then is probably not going to spend much time writing you a good letter. Or maybe they're just like, I don't remember who this person is. I don't really know that I can write them a good letter, but don't really want to say that. So just move on, find someone else. Grad students can be good. Postdocs, if you interact with any of them, can be good options. people that I say to avoid, just because sometimes I don't know, it's just not usually the strongest letter, is someone whose class you didn't do very well in, unless you can talk to them and say, I know I didn't do well, but like I improved over the semester, unless that's someone who you kind of have built a relationship with. And also just try to avoid people who are kind of outside of the university or the research structure. So like your pastor or like your high school teacher or your soccer coach, they probably can't really speak to what people reading those letters are looking for in terms of, some of the qualities that we're all trying to be like, she's amazing and does really great science and also works well as part of a team and whatever else. To Sherry's point, these are my like do's and don'ts. Don't be shy. Don't wait. Don't be like, oh, I don't really know that professor very well, or I only talked to them a few times. Just send the email and they will tell you no. They will just not respond if it can't happen. But do this ahead of time so that you're not missing out on opportunities because you don't have those letter writers lined up. And here's the thing, once I write a letter for somebody, I've got that. And if they need it for other things, I'm kind of always happy to do that. When like that first one takes a little while. But yeah, it's like, especially if you're a freshman or sophomore and you're thinking about that, get some letter writers set up now, because then sophomore, junior, senior years, right? They can just keep cranking those out. When you make that initial ask, and then maybe as it gets a little closer, send your resume or your CV, right? So they have a sense for, I don't know half the time what students are doing outside of my class. And it's really cool when I get to learn, right, what leadership positions or what extracurricular activities they're doing. Let them know when you get something cool happens, or you get accepted to a program, or you present at a conference or something. And then yes, to Sherry's point, do send out reminders at least a week out before any deadlines. I usually say, send me one like the month before, and then like 2 weeks before, and put those on your calendar. I have some students who are so good at this, and I love them because it keeps me, I have them on my to-do list, I have them on my calendar, but it's just like that additional reminder. And, it's always that balance of being proactive and communicating versus being annoying. Just like, don't be too annoying, but be a little bit annoying. It will serve you well in the future. Okay, so then the other component of most applications are basically a personal statement or essay. And most programs want you to answer the questions, why do you want to participate in an REU? What are you thinking you want to do? Not just in your undergrad, because obviously you're in a program, you're at an institution, but after undergrad. And then how would your REU experience kind of help you advance those goals, or help you inform what you want to do, right? And so again, most program directors or people looking at these applications aren't looking for someone who's like, I know that I want to go get a PhD in this field, in this lab, at this institution, and I've already done all this research, and I just want to like basically get this additional thing on my CV. That's not who they're looking for. They're looking for someone who says, I've tried to get some research experience at my home institution, but we don't have people, I hear this all the time in biology, we don't have people doing like marine mammals, right? Or corals, or like the charismatic animals that people think of when they think of marine biology. And so, I've gotten some research experience in like a phytoplankton lab, but it's not what I want, right? It's like, I really need this REU so I can do the sort of research that's not available to me at my home institution. I really want to pursue a career in research, but I'm a student athlete, and so I can't, I've tried to do these things, but I can't commit the time during the year, and like the summer program is where it's at. But, like, I'm not sure what I want to do. I really enjoy my biology classes. Yes, everything's in terms of biology for me. Right, I really enjoy my classes. We've done some kind of research projects in the classes. We don't have a lot of labs that are taking students. So I don't really know if research is for me because I haven't been able to, really dig into it, right? Like, NSF is trying to bring people in to the science workforce, and they don't, yeah. So it's not like you want to go in and say, I know exactly what I want to do, and this is just another thing on my CV. It's like, really, how is this going to uniquely inform your educational and professional goals? That being said, you should highlight your successes. This is not a time to be super modest and like, oh, I'm just an okay student and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you have had any barriers or obstacles, you should also talk about those in the personal statement. They often do ask for a GPA. Okay, maybe your GPA is not stellar, but it's improved a lot, right? Maybe you had a really rough first semester, or I mean, come on, we were all still in a pandemic. Maybe you've had a semester in these last 2 years that was a little rough. Right? Be upfront about some of those obstacles. Maybe you work full time. Maybe you support a family member, care for a family. Talk a little bit about how being able to focus on research in this REU kind of space will allow you to really, yeah, again, kind of get something that you can't get in any other way. Does this make sense? Sherry, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that absolutely. I think it's important to show that you're interested, but also to show why they should choose you over the many other very wonderful applicants they're going to get.
Yeah.
And I agree that there is a time for humility, but maybe this isn't completely it. Say like who you are and why you're a good person and what you can bring, but also what you hope to learn. So I think all of those things you definitely have hit on. And that's also after you've written that statement to go back to what Dr. Stauffer said earlier, go to the writing center, go get it read. And that's true for all of, anytime you're sending this out. And I will tell you, the best personal statements I've read are personal statements that were written when they weren't needed and then just maintained. I have to admit, it wasn't me who did that because I tend to be a procrastinator. But I will tell you, it is wise. If you can do it, you would be wise to write it now and keep it updated. So I'll add that.
Yeah, definitely. And it should, like, you as a person should come through in the personal statement. It shouldn't be stripped of all personality. I mean, it shouldn't be, yeah, it's that weird in between, but yes, you should come through, and certainly what you would bring to the REU and what you would get out of it, and how Sherry said it really well, how that means that you should get this opportunity and not somebody else, which is unfortunately the reality, right? There's not so much money going around. Also, that personal statement, you should talk about if you're a member of an underrepresented group in STEM. This is defined by NSF, and you can go on their website and see what they consider as kind of underrepresented. But even if you just don't see people who look like you in your field, right, at your home institution, I mean, you can talk about these things. Part of what the REU program is supposed to do is bring people into the scientific workforce, but bring people from all backgrounds, all races, all genders, all everything in, and really have our scientific workforce look more like our communities, right? Definitely talk about if you're a first generation college student, right? First generation students, they don't always have the kind of unwritten rules or the kind of the back channels or the, oh, this is how you do this. This is the network, right? The networking that students whose maybe parents went through college do. And also talk about if there are other ways in which you would kind of enhance the diversity of the REU program. So even if it's just that you're working towards, issues around diversity or inclusivity or equity on our UL campus related to being students or being athletes or anything. So really just talk about, again, who you are, but certainly, and UL is kind of we're kind of an interesting university because we do have a lot of active research programs, but that's not in every single discipline. So I know like in chemistry, there's some research, but it's not a really active research group. So even though we are now an R1 university, we still have kind of an R2 chemistry department. So, talk about that there maybe aren't a lot of opportunities for research in that department just because of, the nature of our institution. Okay, and then there's usually some site-specific questions. So I included a couple sites from Ocean Sciences here that are great. These questions vary from site to site, but generally speaking, they might ask you to say, who might you want to work with? What topics, what research themes do you want to work on? Generally indicate the ones that interest you. Try not to pin yourself in a corner and say, I only want to work with Dr. Krajewski because everyone else's research is not of interest to me. Try not to say like, I'll work with anybody, because that suggests maybe, you're just a little opportunistic or not really that interested. If you have any questions, and I'm showing this little screenshot from the NSF website, there are people's phone numbers and email addresses on the NSF website associated with every single one of these funded programs. That exists for a reason. Those are the people who have agreed to be the points of contact for those programs. You have a question, shoot an email. You don't get a response, send another email or give a call to one of these numbers. Like seriously, these people have agreed to list their information publicly. Use it. And they can always answer, these questions. They are also the people to contact if you have questions about the program itself. So let's say you have a child and you would need family housing in order to, participate. Contact them. Let's say you have questions about accessibility related to some, disability accommodation that you need. Contact them. Anything that you have a question about, contact them. Again, there are times of year when these people get a lot of emails. So be patient a little bit, but then also send that follow-up if you don't hear back. All right, after you apply, take a deep breath. Just putting an application together, take a deep breath and congratulate yourself, right? Putting that application together is a big accomplishment. These are competitive programs, so you're not going to get into all of them. You may not get into any of them one summer, right? Like it's somewhat fate. I think if you follow some of the guidance I've given, your odds definitely go up. But for the program I ran, for example, we would often get around 100. I think the last year we did it was 150 or 60 applications, and we would accept 10. So obviously, these are competitive opportunities, but students, I think from UL are really competitive because we have some research. So you've probably gotten a little bit of experience, but you probably haven't been able to kind of take that as far as you want to, right? Like the advanced initiative is kind of just starting up. I know there are a lot of undergrads in biology who want to do research, but a lot of our labs are at capacity. So we have, anyway, I think there are some very real reasons why our students can and should be very competitive for these. Again, if you don't hear back from programs kind of past the time that they said they'd let you know, reach back out to that point of contact. If you do hear back with an offer, and it's the one that's in like Hawaii studying turtles, and it's the one you were dreaming of, just say yes. Yes, that sounds amazing. Ask whatever questions you need to, but take it, go have fun. If you get an offer from a program that's maybe not your first choice, it's okay to wait for, a week or two. They usually give you kind of a deadline. In the geosciences, it's usually March 15th that we cannot ask students to commit before then. And that's partly so students, if they get more than one offer, can, pick the one that's best for them. Ask questions, get the information you need to make that decision. And also tell your letter writers when you get accepted to a program. It's so nice to hear when we know that you guys are going off to do fun stuff. And then finally, if it doesn't work out this year, try again next year. You get better each time you do this. And this is where I dropped the information. If you are graduating this year, like in May, then there's a new program called REPS. So it's like REU, but it's post-baccalaureate. And they just launched this program like last year, 2021. they just released the call for funding. So those programs are all going to be getting funded now. And so keep your eyes peeled, Google something reps, like whatever sea turtle research reps, and see if you can find some opportunities that way too. Okay, I'm going to stop there. This again was our very fun 2021 cohort. That was the last summer that we're hosting our program for right now. But this is me, this is my info. Feel free to shoot me an email or stop by if you have questions, and I'll also stay on and take some questions now.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? You can put them in the chat, or you can go ahead and just ask them, unmute and ask them.
And I'm just going to drop my email address in here in case anybody wants to get in touch.
Okay. I'll give everyone just a second more to see if they have any questions. You answered a lot of questions, so I can imagine that maybe.
A lot of it does come down to, you know, finding programs you're interested in, and then really, you know, tailoring your application and everything to that program. Now with the common application, you don't have to do that as much, but yeah, make sure you know the deadlines, make sure you just kind of write a statement that sells you a little bit.
Absolutely. So this evening we focused on students and how they can apply. There is on our website, on the advanced.louisiana.edu website, a couple of examples of students who have completed REUs, either in a lab or, yes, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and for those of you who are signing off. But real quick, just to let you know that those examples are there. We'll be putting up more just to let people know, you know, and students know what's going on. I know there are some faculty here. Share this with students now, because this is the time that they need to start getting this information. And Dr. Stauffer specifically took out this time this evening, and we'll be promoting this video because she's really quite busy. But this is the time for them to apply. And then just again, for the faculty who are here, we will in the very near future be hosting some workshops for faculty about how to apply if you're interested in hosting a program, or also if you have a grant, what you need to do to tack on some REU people or REU students to work during the semester. And so for the students, know that there are faculty who have REU funding that you can be working with during the semester. That's just, there's fewer of those opportunities, but Advance is working on these things. So thank you, Dr. Stauffer, immensely. And once we have this link posted, I'll send you a copy, so and everyone else who was here so they could share.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad you and your office can help get the word out across campus, and hopefully we can get a lot of you all students in some of these programs.
Yeah, and we said people are, I don't know if you're seeing it on chat, but they're thanking you also.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming.
All right, guys, I'm going to sign off, and y'all have a wonderful evening.
You too. Bye, Sherry.
Bye-bye.